What's up guys? Today I wanted to make a short video for you on this because I've had a lot of requests. I know that the Jussie Smollett case is kind of old news at this point, but I still think it could be fun to dissect his body language. If you don't know what happened, essentially Jussie Smollett, an actor on the show Empire, hired two men to beat him up and make it appear to have been a hate crime. Some people speculated that Jussie staged this hate crime in order to gain more buzz around his name so he could potentially stay on the show Empire and quite possibly get a raise from doing so. And it's also possible that Jussie wanted to take advantage of the fact that race tensions are very high right now, and he thought that his story might be more believable if he tried to pass it off like MAGA supporters were attacking him for being black and gay. I don't really want to dive into the specifics, but I will leave some links to some news articles in the description down below if you would want to read them, along with any other videos I think might be helpful on the subject. So what I want to do is take this liar's interview, dissect it, and hopefully, by the end of this video, you will have learned how to spot a liar just a tad bit better. Don't forget to look at the disclaimers down below about body language. This video is strictly my opinion, so don't come at me. Anyways, let's get into the video.
Here's the first part of Jussie telling his story.
I'm pissed off.
What is it that has you so angry? Is it the attackers?
It's the attackers, but it's also the attacks.
In this first clip, the two things I'll point out is that he smiles as bright as day whenever he says that he's angry, which is definitely not a normal reaction when you claim to be angry. The smile isn't a stress smile because you don't see any stress lines around his face. Then immediately after he says it's also the attacks, and you see his gaze shift on the word attacks, along with the smile and his inflection. He's already showing signs of deception and he hasn't even started the interview yet.
What happened that night, Jussie?
When I landed in Chicago, and Frank Gatson, who's like my uncle, and he's also my creative director, and he picked me up. And then we got back to the apartment. There was no food. And so I went out to Walgreens thinking that they were 24 hours and to have a smoke.
He starts by telling the story the same way a little boy would explain a play date with his friend. You notice how he keeps that smile on throughout this whole video. When he says there was no food, he tilts his head down into a submissive position. He looks up at Robin with doe eyes, much like a child would. He shakes his head dramatically, and I say dramatically because it was a very loose head nod, most likely for portrayal purposes, while the rest of his body is completely stiff. And then when he said he went to Walgreens to get food and have a smoke, the little giggle afterwards, that's stress, and that's immaturity.
Walgreens was closed, so I called him up and I said, hey, I'm gonna run to Subway, which was across the street, and I'm gonna get a salad. Do you want anything? I went to the Subway and got the order. During that time, I texted my manager thinking that he was still in Australia because he was on an Australian tour with one of his other clients. And I said, yo, call me when you can. He called me immediately, and while he was on the phone, I heard, as I was crossing the intersection, I heard Empire. And I don't answer to Empire. My name ain't Empire.
He bites his lip before he says, I heard, which could be a nervous habit. His eyes are glued onto one part of the room and he nods into his words, confirming in his head what he's about to say. When you're remembering events that have happened, usually your eyes will scan your brain for visual or auditory memories, but I don't see his eyes scan his brain for anything. He's not trying to remember the sound of the person's voice or the tone in which it was actually said to him, which is interesting because he's introducing the antagonist to his story, and for someone who likes soaking in the limelight, he surely is unusually reserved compared to the smiley Jussie that he just was. He blinks on the word empire, which is a really important word to emphasize because it's the first thing that this person said to him. It's the first interaction that he's had with this person, but he blinks on where he should put emphasis, and then adds the emphasis afterwards with his funny little, I don't respond to empire. Like, no shit. Do you think we're all just big jokes, Jussie?
And I didn't answer. I kept walking, and then I heard Empire. So I turned around and I said, the did you just say to me? And then I see the attacker masked, and he said, this MAGA country. punches me right in the face.
Okay, there's a lot to digest here. So, if you're going off the assumption that Jussie is telling the truth, wouldn't you find it a little odd that there's no change in vocal inflection when he's telling his story? It's all of the same monotone speech pattern. There's absolutely no hatred displayed in his face, no recollection can be found, because once again, there's no scanning the emotional side of his brain. This man might as well be feeling little to nothing as he speaks. When he says, "I see the attacker," you can see his eyes shoot towards the constructive side of his brain for information. He even pauses before the word attacker, presses his lips together like, this is it, this is where the lie gets serious, and now I have to actually pretend like I'm remembering this event, and then he blinks on the word attacker. Once he says that the attacker was masked, he closes his eyes and he frowns. And that's one of the biggest signs he's given us so far. Him doing that movement was him realizing he's in so deep.
So I punched his ass back. And then we started tussling. You know, it was very icy. And we ended up tussling by the stairs. Fighting. There was a second person involved who was kicking me in my back, and then it just stopped.
Okay, you guys know the smile that I made references to at the beginning of this video? Yeah, right after he says, and then it stopped, he gets that big smile on his face. That is a duping delight smile. Textbook.
And they ran off.
Okay, the change from smiling Jussie to serious Jussie in 0.005 seconds was just so funny to me, I'm sorry.
And I saw where they ran, and the phone was in my pocket, but it had fallen out, and it was sitting there, and my manager was still on the phone. So I picked up the phone, and I said, "Brandon," and he's like, "What's going on?" And I said, "I was just jumped." And then I looked down, and I see that there's a rope around my neck, which I hadn't.
You hadn't noticed it before?
No,
You didn't
because
see?
it was so fast. You know what I'm saying? It was so fast.
How long did this all
It felt
take?
like minutes, but it probably was like 30 seconds, honestly. I can't tell you, honestly.
This point isn't really body language related, but whenever someone's lying to you, they'll occasionally use words like honestly or truthfully quite a bit whenever they're not being honest, which is funny how that works. And they'll give you bits of random information to make it seem like a more complete story. Like earlier, whenever he was saying something along the lines of that he had been fighting by the staircase, it's such an irrelevant piece of information to give that serves no story building purposes at all, but it was added to sprinkle in that bit of believability. Hey, you can lie out your ass, but you can't hide that big smile.
The police have gone through a lot of video, and they were able to capture an image of two people of interest. Have you seen that image, and do you believe that they could possibly be the attackers?
I do.
What is it about their size, or why do you feel that they could possibly be?
Because I was there. For me, when that was released, I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. I don't have any doubt in my mind that that's them. Never did.
Jussie Smollett just told his story, and we don't see any trauma anywhere throughout this entire video. I guess what I want to know is why reliving this trauma doesn't affect him in any way. He says he doesn't have any doubt in his mind that these are the people who did this to him, but after he says that, he presses his lips together almost like he was eating his words. It's physically what he's doing, is eating his words. And he looks over to his left, but it's not scanning an emotional side of the brain, it's just him looking over to his left, and then the stiffness with "that's them." He doesn't move at all. This is not a trauma victim. This is not the victim of a hate crime. This is a liar. This is what a fucking liar looks like. But that is all that I have for this video today. Thank you guys so much for sitting through this old tea with me. I know. I'll get to more relevant stories next time. But feel free to leave a comment down below and tell me what you think about this whole thing. I'm curious to hear you guys' feedback. Hopefully this video could help you guys learn a thing or two about liars and how to spot them. I really do try my hardest on this channel. But like I said, that's all I have for today. So I will catch you guys on the next video.